Hi, America. It's Tim from America the Conversation, and welcome to this bonus episode. What you're about to hear is a conversation between me and Andrew about how we got into politics. Part 1 is Andrew, Part 2 is me, and there is a full episode for you to listen to as well. Enjoy. So what got you into politics? You were telling me right before we started that you can't imagine it yourself not being into politics. Like, has it been like part of your upbringing kind of a thing?
Yeah, I had two very political parents on both sides of the aisle, far right and pretty center left, far left, for her time. Probably center left today. I was always pushed.
Your mom?
Yeah. And my dad is a far right cop, and just the worst kind of one. But yeah, I mean, I was raised, I think, to be something that I didn't turn out to be, which was, a politician. I was raised to be a lawyer or somebody who was representing the family and the family name by my dad as somebody. And that's when I was always reading about history and politics throughout the world. And, was regularly encouraged to read the paper by my mom, my dad, my grandmother on my dad's side, who was brilliant. My dad's mom was a brilliant woman, knew 6 different languages, was very well traveled. So like there was definitely a familial, like, you need to be involved in this from both sides of the aisle.
Right. Civic duty kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It's whether it's
patriotism, maybe,
whether
like,
it's your responsibility.
Or is it?
I think that, like, from my mom's angle, it's your responsibility as a good citizen, and from my dad's angle, it was your responsibility as a Turner to represent the family.
Oh, okay.
But
not like as an American.
No, he doesn't
kind of
give a
thing.
shit. I mean, like, he would lie and say that he gave a shit, sure, about that. But I mean, like,
Sure.
his motivations in the end were familial. Like, he could have been American
Right, okay.
or Roman 2,000 years ago, and he would have been the same man. It was
right.
He wanted us in the Senate. You know what I mean? He wanted me and my brother, one of us to be a warrior and one of us to be a poet politician. Like, that was something he talked about regularly. And like, I remember getting punished at like 8 and 9 years old by having to read like Sun Tzu, or like, because eventually I remember getting punished having to read Bible verses, and eventually I started asking questions and like pointing out contradictions, and my dad was like, well, no more reading the Bible, and like started handing me everything from the Odyssey to, like I said, Sun Tzu's Art of War, to the habits of Machiavelli, the Prince, 5 effective habits for highly effective people, like all that kind of shit.
Oh yeah, got that book.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And so politics and history in general, the humanities, like culture, anthropology, have always been really big to me. And like, my mother was always very pro-choice, and that was her main issue that she worked on her whole life. The first time that I went to a rally or a protest when I was 19 was in Austin for abortion rights.
Oh, cool.
I started off pretty conservative and libertarian as a kid. I was a white man in Texas. And slowly, as I got to be about 17, 18, 19, and my worldview expanded, and I met new people and listened to people that weren't in my echo chamber, I slowly went from liberal, from conservative libertarian, and then libertarian to liberal, and then liberal to leftist. And now I'm an American socialist, like, straight up.
Right.
So, I mean, I think I've always cared about politics because I've always been of the mentality, which is instilled in me by both my parents, for better or worse. If you might not care about politics, but your landlord does, your boss does, your preacher does, your rabbi does, your imam does, like you're the company that your boss works for cares about politics, like people. And if you don't care about politics, it's a source of privilege that you don't care about changing the status quo.
Yeah. Agreed.
And I think that was a second part that I picked up later on in my after my childhood, early in my adulthood, that I realized that it's not just about my personal freedoms and rights. It's about other people that aren't living the same lifestyle as me. And I mean, also a lot of the shiny illusion of America being this city on a shining hill, being perfect, and and a meritocracy quickly was dispelled in my 20s. I was like, wait, some of the hardest working and best people I know have some of the worst jobs and the worst lives I've ever seen. Yeah. I mean, like, I think that I got involved in politics and I started because politics is just a word for how we're working as a group. whether that be at the city level, at the school board level, at the state level, at the federal level, at the international level. I mean, I've always been interested in humans and stories and how what makes us different than any other animal, what makes us unique. I would argue that it is stories and ideas that aren't real in an uncaring universe, fairy tales like justice and humanity and sacrifice and love, things that are not measurable by math, but because we're humans and we've come up with them as concepts, we enact them and make them real in the world. And I think that politics is just the organization of that idea. So I've always been interested in how
that's amazing.
Humans, run the world, and that is politics. And slowly but surely I came to realize that existing power structures are the same existing power structures they were 30, 50, 100, 200, 500, 2,000, 4,000, 6,000 years ago. And that's the fact that there are people who have a lot because they were lucky and they were born into the right birth lottery, or they were born with the right genetics, or they were born with the right chances. And now they're the rice king. They have all the rice, and we got to work for them because they own the rice fields. And it's the exact same thing it was 4,000 years ago. And I think that instead we should all stand up and go, maybe we should all own the rice fields, because the idea that you work more than a feudal peasant these days, like the average American does.
Yeah.
Like you work more than a feudal peasant. And
they have like 4 months of vacation or something like that, because the king's like, they're going to revolt if I don't give them a break.
Well, and I mean, like once you did your crop, you were done, right? Like you got your taxes paid. Like you got enough food for you and your family. You're done. The rest of your year's up to you. Yeah. Like you're good. I mean, there's a lot less free time for the average American now than there is for former feudal peasants in a lot of countries throughout history. Yeah. And I think that what we should come to is a world that through technology and unionization of the workforce, jobs do become much easier, and people need to work a lot less in order for society to function. And we use a lot less resources, and we do eat and shop local, and we take care of everyone's health care, and thus that saves us money because people aren't as hurt and ill as often. We make sure that everyone's educated, which means that we have more people inventing and innovating things. We make sure that everyone is taken care of and has a home because we have more people now producing in the workforce and working together. I mean, I think that the more we take care, there's an exponential benefit, right? Like even if you're a greedy, selfish person, I think what politics has taught me is that there is an exponential benefit to making things better for the rest of humanity, for humanity.
Yeah.
Things will be better for you in your lifetime, and exponentially better lifetimes down the road if we work harder to solve some of these systematic injustices. And that includes racism, that includes the patriarchy, that includes colonialism, that includes wealth inequality in general. I mean, like these are real foundational issues that have been here since humanity started organizing in cities. And I think that we have gotten better and better about fixing them, especially in the last 200 to 300 years. But that being said, we have to continue to get better. And I think we are within grasp of the next 2 or 3 generations where people don't have to work anymore, where working is something you choose to do as extra money. Yeah. And to, or, get to the Star Trek point of the accumulation of wealth is no longer how we measure our aptitude. Like, at this point, like you're
love that episode.
Like you're competing to like be on Starfleet or do the best thing in the city that you live in, or be the best farmer. You're competing in a sense of competition for the betterment of everyone, not for a number at the end of the line that says you get to buy whatever you want. Like,
yeah.
And I'm not for the abandonment of a free market by any means. Neither is socialism or communism, by the way, but I think people will
common misconception.
Yeah, I think that we will definitely still exchange goods and services, probably for a dollar amount of some sort of fiat currency. But I think that the idea that everyone has to work to survive is quickly at this point approaching futility. I think that we will get to a point where everyone in the world should be able to have healthcare, housing, food, and water, and good healthcare, housing, food, and water, and not have to work at all. Now, I think most people will still work. I can tell you this, the pandemic proved to me, as lazy as I thought I was, I would wind up working on something, whether that's artistic or working for somebody else. Like, I can't sit here all day and go crazy in my room. Like, I did it for a year.
Yeah.
And like that, the idea that people are lazy, I think is a capitalist myth. I think that the vast majority, 99.99999% of people are going to still work even if they didn't have to.
Yeah, there's a lazy piece of shit out there somewhere, but it's nowhere near the majority. Like, it's like maybe 5 guys in their burgers and fries.
And power to them. If they really want to live off the rest of us working, if even 1% of our society really wants to live off the rest of us working, like while the rest of us
be pariahs, no one's gonna like them.
No one's gonna hang out with you. And by the way, even if they do, you know what? Fine, that's cool. I don't give a shit. Like you can, like, it's just like I don't give a shit about somebody like bumming around until they affect my life, bumming a cigarette or bumming a couch for a night. Like, it's like, if they really want to do that, we should still take care of them because they're human beings. And then,
exactly.
By the way, I think the vast majority of people, like I said just now, and like you're reiterating, like the vast majority of people are going to want to work. They're going to want to work on something. The profit motive doesn't have to be the only thing. And we can certainly provide all, like, people don't have to bargain their Maslow's hierarchy in order to produce their labor, right? Like, we could make everybody be educated, healthy, well-fed, and have housing, and people would still go find jobs in all the companies and businesses and industries we have now, because they would go, you know what, I want a Corvette. You know, I want a boat. I want to buy more D&D dice. I'm a dice goblin, and I only have 600 sets of dice, and this one has a rose in it, a real live miniature rose in it, and it cost me $284, and I want it. So even if I had my apartment and my rent and my food and everything else taken care of, I'd be like, gotta go work 6 hours today because I gotta buy me some rose dice.
Shit. Oh, well, at least I'm working 6 hours and everything's paid for, and I'm not going to die, and I'm not going to starve, and I'm not going to freeze, and I'm not going to overheat, and my family, same thing, friends, same thing. There's no more pollution.
And I think that the reason I got into politics was to make things better for other people, right? And the truth that I've learned of the past 25 years from being an Occupy to marching to changing my party affiliation to changing it again to independent to working with multiple campaigns, left and center. What I can tell you is that I've learned that before us, the divine right of kings was something that everyone thought was permanent. That was how we ran our society in this feudal way. And it too disappeared.
Truth.
And capitalism will do the same. And that is the defining moment of our era, right? Either we will kill ourselves off through nuclear war or climate change because we refused to do anything but worry about the next quarter's profits, or we will unite together to the very wealthy, to the 1% that own our lives, and make it where all of us have worse lives and are unhealthy and work into retirement and have no retirement left. We can stand up to those people and demand a world where we have more say and control over it. And if we do that, it will be a better world. It will be a kinder world. It will be a world where a lot of the fears that I think a lot of these capitalists say will never come to be, but we have to actually try. And like I said in a few podcasts earlier that we recorded today, it ain't going to be a hero that comes along and does it. It's not going to be Andrew. It's not going to be Tim. It's not going to be Bernie. It's not going to be Lizzie Warren. It's not going to be any one person. It is going to be through collective action from the bottom up. People knocking on doors, people having conversations, people changing. The fact that Obama legalized gay marriage and the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage, and then now the Democrats have affirmed it, is because of a cultural change that Tim and I and probably a lot of you watched happen. It wasn't because one single politician stood up.
Push.
It was that Will and Grace was on TV. It was that people were able to come out without worrying about getting killed by their family.
Yeah.
It was that all of us learned to not call people gay as a prerogative, not say the F-bomb. Because a cultural shift happened as me and Tim were children into our adulthood. And it wasn't a single politician that did it. Yeah. It wasn't a single politician.
We were the end and the beginning of this shift. Like we
the digital age,
used slurs, and then we are the same generation that said, "Hey, everybody that said this like us and did it before us," because it was just a normal thing to F-bomb, people like Eminem. Case in point, And we're like, hey, we're not doing this anymore. And if it's in anything, well, we just invented a new thing called canceling. So we're going to do that.
Well, I think there's no coincidence that millennials are the first generation that started to veer left from the political ideology.
Absolutely.
And is also the first generation that started going to fucking therapy. I think
Truth.
I think
Amen.
all three of those things align, right? Like the cultural shift, the political shift, and the personal work shift is all stuff that has happened in our generation for the first time. And Gen Z will outdo us by measures and bounds, I have no doubt. But Gen X is like the worst, and boomers don't even realize what's going on. So I mean, like that all being said, I think that all change comes from the ground up. And I want to be part of that change. I don't need to be a leader or a figurehead of it, especially now in my life when I realize that figureheads are just that. I just want to be a part of it. And that's what got me into politics, is I want to make things better for other people. And the workers of the world should unite. One day communism will win.
Hard stuff. I'm going to go. I'm going to make these two. I'm going to go over mine. It's different, but the same. There's one thing that has always driven me crazy, and you mentioned it, is the privilege of I'm not into politics. Like I don't follow politics. I've heard a few people say it in my life since becoming more politically minded myself, and it just drives me up the fucking wall. But it also helped me realize that I also, like you, not to the same extent if my parents wanted me to be a poet, senator, or a general, like very much the opposite. Like they did not want me going into the military. Despite that, I grew up with all military friends. That's a separate thing. But I have always been into it, but it's because my religion that I was raised in pushed it on me. And it pushed one specific type of politics on me, and that was conservatism, and Republican conservatism specifically. And I remember the first time I was into something, and I don't even know why. I was praying that Bob Dole would win on election night, and he didn't, because that's what Jesus would want. And I think in fifth grade, that was 96. Oh no, I wasn't in fifth grade then. So I was probably third or second grade that election year. And that was my first knowing I know how things are run. I know there's this, and this, but then, we didn't have civics in school. I think my senior year was the last class to ever take civics. But even then, my teacher gave us all open book tests, was I think a tennis coach or something, did not give a flying shit, let us talk the entire time while he sat on his phone, which back then was a flip phone. So who are you texting? Because you're not on the internet. But it's still, regardless,
playing Snake.
The running Snake. Line here is say that again.
He's playing Snake. That's what he was doing.
Oh, he's playing Snake. Oh yeah, he probably was playing Snake, huh?
On his ruby red game. On his ruby red rojo red flip phone.
I guarantee, dude. That's what's now in my brain is what he's using. Like he replaced it, but because for sure, he did have a flip phone, but God, but no. The through line for all this for me was that the Christianity, and not any specific denomination. I was kind of all over the place. I don't know how many Christians are listening to this. Assembly of God, non-denominational, Holy Roller, Baptist, mostly Southern Baptist until my church left the Southern Baptist Convention. They all have their own issues as well. But
wait, you were alive during a schism?
Yes, we left the Southern Baptist Convention. Southern Baptists don't like dancing. They're very strict. My church was just a normal Baptist church, and it wasn't called a Southern. I think it used to be called Glenview Southern Baptist Church at some point. Maybe not, but I know the pastor there, whether or not this is actually true, he said it on stage once, but he was one of George Bush's religious advisors, and that he and other pastors in Texas had to meet with him first before they let him run for president, which, I mean, is it kind of a thing in a way, like, but I think he would have done it without with or without their blessing. He gave a sermon. I remember one day, like, I've got these two friends that are with me who I think are probably conservatives in their normal lives now, but regardless, they knew what we were watching was wrong. He was giving a sermon about how we have to vote for George W. Bush, which is illegal, but he did it anyways. But that was always fed to me growing up, like all of these like anti-left things, at least, but it's still political. Like it was always in the back of my brain. Like I remember when I was 17, I wasn't able to vote for Bush the second time, but I wore my United States Marine shirt and I duct taped the words Bush to the back of it and walked around school. I was kind of that annoying. But then last half of my senior year, I start sitting with, and I'm not at that point in my life any person who consumes cannabis, but I started sitting with the stoners who were pretty rad people. One of them was pretty much a libertarian, but he, it started opening up my brain to things. And I went to college, as cliche as it sounds, and met my first gay person because prior to this, I had been taught that when you are talking to a gay person, you are talking to someone who is possessed by a demon. And that is how my church raised me.
That's the second time you've mentioned that on this podcast. It is an insane fact.
I know,
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but like for the sake of what I'm talking, like this is but this is mixed in with politics, right? It was, I had a pastor that I knew that gave a whole sermon about how will and grace isn't funny. It's not funny. It's promoting sin. That pastor was recently kicked out of his church for cheating on his wife. Real family values there. Matt Chandler kicked out of his church for fucking
friend of the show
around on his, or not cheating. I'm sorry. Inappropriate text messages were exchanged that undermined his authority. Some
That's
bullshit.
cheating.
I think it's called cheating
when you're
talking to what's it called, Becky with the good hair on the side, like fuck this lady.
I think
fuck you and this lady.
I think trying to have sex with anyone but your partner when you have not talked to your partner about having sex with other people is cheating.
Allegedly trying. Whatever. It was. Yeah, but regardless, like it just like it, there was always something growing up, especially at the church that I spent most of my time at, that always sat wrong with me about all of this. Like, and like it was, one of the pastor I mentioned, drove a Lexus and had a shower in his office and everything. Like we built a play place, like a McDonald's super big, super crazy. You've probably seen it driven on 820, but paid for it to, in my words, lure people in, to try and like, oh, look, let's go to the church with the playground. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just seems versus like, well, if your message isn't good, then it's good enough to bring people in. Like, then you're the problem, not the lack of.
They got Starbucks as a
slide.
They got Starbucks in mega churches,
dude.
now.
And you're not supposed to do that.
I was
Jesus beat the shit out of people for it.
I was selling tacos when I was working at the taco shop that shall remain nameless at Gateway Church. And I went inside.
Oh, wow.
And there was a Starbucks in there. And I like thought for a second. I was like, I'm never going to go to a mega church. But if there was a reason I was going to, like if I,
it's going to have a Starbucks.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I marry someone who somehow is like an evangelical, like she just casts a spell on me, then like I will only go to the mega church that has the Starbucks in it so that I can get a tall, a grande fucking Americano, and I can be like, hey, I really have to go to the bathroom. And then I can step out back, smoke a cigarette, and go poop. And that's how I'm going to spend my Sunday morning.
Watch something on your phone.
Watch some TikToks with my headbuds in the bathroom stall. Yeah, that's my plan.
Yeah. That's like I'm so glad I didn't end up in that
I am too.
world.
I love you,
like
buddy.
because like when I, like, as I mentioned, I met my first gay person that I befriended. Who knows when I met a gay person in my life,
Right.
like, because everybody in the 90s and early 2000s had to be so closeted because the culture was garbage. And he put everything into perspective for me. And then I went and talked to my pastor. I was like, hey, how can you justify all of this? And I've got a second gay friend who, is regular church goer. I'm like, if he loves Jesus, I don't know how this works, man. It was like a year's festering thing of like, not just gay folk, but like, I grew up, not to get up their views on sexuality. A lot of kids I knew had Confederate flags in their pockets.
Oh yeah, still
that walked around.
I mean, there's
still
a lot of
to
people
this day, probably still. But
yeah, I will say there is a 1 in 10 chance that if you and I get invited to a random party and we show up in Texas, there'll be a Confed flag in it. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Like come and take it, something like that. Like,
yeah.
I
mean, I got to come and take a flag. That's not the same as the stars and bars.
But it's a different thing. They co-opted it. I know it's not the same. It's the people that co-opted it. And like, you don't know what that flag means.
I have the first flag of Texas with the come and take it and the black star, which is representational of the fact that I like being Texan. But the stars and bars is representational of the fact that you want to be a Confederate, which is different.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will never have. If you wear stars and bars, I will tell you to leave my party. Right? If you have a come and take it, I'm gonna be like, you're probably a conservative, but sure. I mean, like, I like guns too.
I do have a shirt that I don't want to get rid of. It's a Leonard Skinner shirt, and the letters is the Confederate flag. I'm like,
Tim.
I can't ever wear that again.
No.
But it's like, it's the one piece. I'm like, but it's so.
Use it as a sex rag.
I don't even want to.
You got to use it as a sex rag.
Sex rag. Yeah, I know. I should probably use it as a sex rag.
That's what it's good for.
Fine.
It's good for cleaning up cummies.
I got so many better. I mean, I don't even know where that shirt is at all anymore, but I just know I've had it and I bought it because I thought, it's because of the people that I was raised around who are like, Confederacy wasn't about slavery. It was just about tariffs. I'm like, yes, but why were the tariffs there? Like, why were those tariffs put in place?
States' rights to what?
But
that's my favorite meme.
States' rights to what?
States' rights to what? Yeah, the Civil War wasn't about slavery. It's about states' rights. States' rights to what? What was the states' rights about specifically? Why don't we talk about that? What was in the Constitution for the Confederate States? What did Jefferson say was the reason they left?
Yeah, right.
What was it about preserving a white caste system where white supremacy still reigned? Was that in their Constitution?
Lord. One of my favorite comics that like kind of describes like how I was growing up and so many people like me before I was able to break away from this just group of human beings that just, I feel just like, and through no fault of their own, they themselves are all brainwashed. But, yeah. Like we were all brainwashed. Yeah. That's the thing. Like it took a lot to unbrainwash me. Like, but before I move on, the comic is an explosionism. It's got a person just says, "I'm not a racist, but," and then a butt shows up and goes, "Hi, I'm not a racist, but you were going to say something." Yeah.
Hey, as my grandma used to say. Nothing really matters until someone says "but," till the words that come after "but." In any sentence.
Amen.
It can matter a little bit, maybe, but it don't matter as much of whatever comes after the word "but."
But no, what I was saying is moving on from it and like was meeting you and other people that helped me start thinking about left leaning things, like going to the coffee shop we would go to and then, talking with one of my old friends who started, going on, like who was younger than me. And I up until the election, I was considering voting for John McCain, which I think I said in the first episode, but I didn't because he was very much still for outsourcing jobs. And my dad had just gotten laid off from, the whole, the recession like everybody else. And so I was like, well, no. And then I started hearing about Obama and like, oh, wait, we don't have health. Not everybody has health insurance. Oh, wait, how do I have health insurance? Oh, through my parents. Oh, right. And then my parents were also like, yeah, we like Hillary Clinton a lot just because they name recognition, but also health insurance. And they were tired of the same old shit. Like, we all voted for Bush. They voted for Dole. They voted for Ross Perot in the 90s. But back
in the day, it was true that there was a large section of the middle America that would shift their votes, right? I don't think that's true anymore.
And it did.
I don't think that's true anymore. I think people are pretty set in their ways.
Anymore.
But yeah.
But yeah, like once that started to happen and I started thinking about things, and then someone explained to me light speed and how it actually works about, it was when I stopped believing in creationism at the age of 21. And I was like, oh. And then I heard somebody say, oh no, God just put all the light, like, for those of you who aren't nerds about science, light travels at like 180,000 miles a second or something like that. Mm-hmm. Andromeda, the galaxy, is 1 million light years away. That is how fast light travels in one singular year, meaning the light that we see from Andromeda is 1 million years old, and that light took 1 million years to get here. So the Earth cannot be 6,000 years old. And so that made me go, oh, wait a minute. And then I brought it up to someone. They go, oh no, God just put all the lights in place so we could see his glory. I'm like, oh, that's what a cop-out is.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I can't argue with you. And then since then I don't argue with anybody who believes in creationism. Like, full stop. We can't have a conversation because
you're not arguing in good faith.
You don't believe in basic science.
Yeah.
And so, and like, I mean, I even watched Bill Nye debate what's his name from that
the Creationist Museum guy.
The Creationist Museum. That was hilarious watching him get the floor wiped with him, but he doesn't think he did. Anyways, but very long story short, 15-minute story short, meeting you guys, you and others like you, helped start opening my brain. I still wouldn't consider myself a full communist, just because I don't think it can fully work without matter synthesis from Star Trek.
Let me clarify. I'm a
hold on.
I'm a communist in the sheets.
Communist light.
I'm a communist in the sheets and a socialist in the streets.
Socialist in the streets. Right? Yes, exactly.
I believe
Same
in
thing. Like, ideally,
I'm a
communist.
One day there will be worldwide gay space luxury communism.
Like,
I don't think it's in our lifetimes. Don't get me wrong.
No, absolutely not. And that's the thing. Like, I am idealistically that, but democratic socialism, like, well,
it's a step forward.
That's realistically works. It's capitalism can still exist. Everybody's taken care of. Like, it's the Christian thing actually to take care of people. It's the fiscally conservative thing to take care of everybody, because by doing so, by housing the unhoused folks, assuming they want to be housed, you stop the burden of $100,000 per person on every single human being that's unhoused.
It's an investment
versus the $30,000 a year. That's, I mean, you just invest. You pay women equally. You add $2 trillion to the economy.
Tim,
you do like all these things.
Tim, a recent pull in on like actual what's going down right now. For every dollar the IRS gets in funding, they get an average of $7 to $8 back in what they're able to pull in revenue. Like, it's an investment, right? So when they're trying to get rid of all these IRS workers, the Republicans, fear mongering that they're going to come knock on your door, when really they're going to go after millionaires and billionaires more. They're going to make $7 to $8 for every dollar they invested over the next 10 years into this program. That's what a lot of these government programs are. Yeah, they cost money. Yeah, they add to the deficit, but they're an investment that will wind up making the country way more money through its GDP in the long run. That's what the Green New Deal is. It saves us money on what climate change will cost us in the end by investing now and making it less than tense. And I think that a lot of growing up and a lot of what you and I learned from each other is that, like, great men and women, great people plant trees that they'll never hope to sit under the shade of, right?
Yeah.
We have to invest in each other, in our community.
Absolutely.
And I will say one funny story that actually proves that we've been good close friends for a long time. I too voted for Obama in 2008, and you and I were together on election night in 2008.
Oh yeah, we were.
At your apartment. Yes, at your apartment in North Richland Hills. And I was ashamed that I voted for Obama. I was like, everything in me was like...
because you're a Republican.
Yeah, because I was a registered Republican.
Oh, I wasn't. I didn't give a fuck. I was so done with Bush at that point.
I was still my daddy's boy.
Like, I had so many friends that were military.
Boy. Yeah, I was a military brat.
My friend, but all my friends went to Iraq and fought, and some almost died. One did, and it's just so I'm like, fuck that war. That was the other thing.
There's a reason I voted for Obama.
I'm going to stay in Iraq for 100 years. That's what did me in. I was like, go fuck yourself. No,
I wound up voting for Obama. I was just like, I never thought I'd vote for a Democrat when I was 20 years old.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I didn't
care.
And then within 4 years, I was like, okay, I'm a Democrat. Like, let's be honest. I'm for gay rights. Like, I'm for, ending the wars. I'm for shutting down Guantanamo. And then 4 years after that, I was like, why aren't we getting anything done? Why did this Obama guy not deliver on any of his promises? And that's when I started like getting into Bernie.
Yeah.
And getting into the left wing and like reading theory, like reading actual socialist and communist theory and being like, oh, it's always been like this. Like all of history has been this fight. It's been the same fight.
Oh my God.
The whole time.
It echoes so much.
We think we're unique because we're America, and that's such bullshit. We're like every other empire before us, and we're fighting the same fight, like between the proletariat and the upper class. Like
there's simply even in the American Revolution shortly after itself, which we'll talk about in our president's show. One thing I will be mentioning there is Washington breaking up the Whiskey Rebellion and shit because of Alexander Hamilton. I won't get into it, but basically it was, we need to be paid because none of us can afford gold and you're making it all gold. Not to mention the debtor's prison shit. Like all of the stuff that happened after the revolution was still keeping poor people down and people rising up, and our own new government shutting it down again.
And this is another episode, but the idea the idea that like America was like this functioning constitutional government right after the revolution is how we were taught growing up, in this like School of Rock, and then they made the Constitution after they defeated King George. And it's like, nobody talks about the 14 years of like how the 13 colonies were essentially different nations that all had like a Congress that they didn't have to abide by.
Pennsylvania had a president.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like, we don't learn about any of this and you go back and you're like, oh, we've always been a messy bitch. Like America has always been a messy bitch of rich white men trying to keep the poor white men and black men and women from uniting and being like,
this isn't liberty's kids.
Yeah. I mean, I think
you should watch that show on YouTube, kids.
I think that America, I mean, like it was, I would argue that the American Civil War was the biggest leftist win in modern history before the 1917 revolution, right? Because so many people were freed and added to the workforce with actual rights, and under Reconstruction, it was actually working, and they were actually, you were seeing like black representation in state and federal houses, and the Senate, or excuse me, not the Senate, but the federal house and state houses. And I think that probably the battle for equal rights, it's so formed up in identity politics so often that we forget that the truth is it should be for everyone. That's not to discount colonialism or racism or the patriarchy or anti-trans stuff. Or, I think we should definitely be talking about those and regularly uplifting voices in all those communities and putting them in positions of power. It's to say that in the end, it's about the fact that it doesn't matter who you are. We should all be treated like human beings. Like, in equity and equality.
And that's what really switched me to the Democrats, is because it seemed more moral. Like when I started when I heard Obama talk, and I know he didn't keep all his promises, I would argue a little bit that was because the Republicans kept him from a lot of that and gutted Obamacare, but that's,
I think he tried
also
to compromise.
Is a politician.
Yeah, I think he tried to compromise.
He
with
tried to
Republicans,
compromise
and that
too
was a
much.
bad move.
And it sucked. Bad move, Barry. That's what we could call him. Bad move, Barry.
And the whole drone strikes of innocent people thing.
Yeah, I know. That's a different conversation
and
too.
And not punishing the banks after the 2008.
Oh yeah, okay. Yes, I understand. Obama did some bad things, but before that, when he was giving his speech, he his yes we can. It was the yes we can speech that kind of actually is what flipped me. If I want to pinpoint I was like, oh wait a minute, but this isn't what Republicans believe. And I did some basic ass digging, and I was like, oh, that's not what they believe. They're very this, and and then I started reflecting on how racist and homophobic I was as a younger kid. Because of the brainwashing and world I grew up in. And it just made me sick to my stomach. And then I even talked to my parents about, who are you voting for? And they're like, oh, we like Hillary Clinton. And like I had mentioned earlier, and it was because of the healthcare thing and because of like all this other stuff and like all these like it's just my mom said it just seems more Christian to do to vote for her and then it became Obama when they voted for him, but like it just because of all the things that like lifting up poor people and lifting up all these things, like it just seemed like I had a director in college for one of the plays I was in. She had a sticker on her filing cabinet that said Christian and Democrat. And at first it broke my brain, but then over time I was like, oh yeah, fuck. It just makes more sense.
Hey, I mean, never forget that a brown-skinned socialist houseless Jew is the founder of the religion. So I mean, like,
and that's the thing when you start pointing out Jesus of being all these different things and like, oh wow, like that's when it drove me to socialism. I was like, I read Jesus was a socialist. And I was like, and then I was like, oh wait, these are tenets of socialism. Oh fuck, I'm a socialist. Oh, okay. That makes sense.
I mean, I would argue whether you believe in the divinity or Christ or not, which, I do not.
But it doesn't matter. Yeah, descriptively, story-wise, he was a socialist.
That's what I mean, is I think that he was fighting that back. If he was a real person in history, which I think he probably was, some type of figure.
Yeah.
I think that he was fighting against injustice, like of both the Roman state government,
absolutely,
and then the priesthood of rabbis in the temple in Jerusalem. So, I mean, and
power got to him,
and never to quote Killer Mike, never forget that Jesus was killed by the state. It is the truth.
Yeah, he was 100%. Like
he was.
Herod like went after him initially, then Pilate like gave power over to that.
I mean, I don't think the Romans
allegedly regretted it the rest of his life and became a Christian.
The Romans, I don't know about that, but
I don't think that's true.
I think the Romans were just like, you're causing trouble. Like you're a rabble-rouser.
You're causing disorder. So let's crucify you like we did these other 10 guys yesterday.
The people in power, the rich Pharisees, the people in power of the city, were like, you gotta do something about this Jesus guy, Rome. Everybody getting mad.
Yeah,
and the Romans.
Well, it's because
they
hold so much sway that they could have whipped up a crowd themselves to go at Rome. Like you either get rid of this guy, or you're gonna have a problem. Like they somehow the church, surprise, a church was able to shake down a government, which they seem to do all the time.
It's almost like they regularly work in hand to keep people that are revolutionary trying to make things better for everybody down.
Church to be separated from the state. Who said that? Oh, the Constitution and Ben Franklin.
I don't care about no stupid letter.
I know. Fuck you, Lauren Boebert. Guess the fuck what? It's in the Constitution. Read it. I've got 3 copies within 100 feet of me. Fuck off. I hate you.
Well, apparently apparently she has to do something 15 times to learn it. So.
Oh wait, what was that about? I saw something with the word 15. That's
the number of votes for McCarthy they had to go through.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Sorry. I just saw her in a meme with the word 15 on it. Like, did she get like a 15 on her final exams or something like that? That makes sense.
Oh, no. I know a lot of people are talking. We're doing the thing where we talk about recent news again. But I know a lot of people I know a lot of people are talking about the fact that she didn't get her GED until right before she ran.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think that's fine. I'm actually for
gross.
More people who don't have college degrees being in the house. I'm for more mechanics and more like teachers and more
people
like
who are practical.
Teachers have degrees, but I mean people that are practical. Just in general, I'm for more people who aren't lawyers and bankers and investment icons.
Yeah,
being
Bill
in
Nye
power.
Gave me that
scientist.
The scientist guy,
would be great in power. Yeah, that.
Well, he gave that pitch one time, and so did I think Neil Tyson might have too. Of just like, why are scientists not the ones sitting on these committees judging? Like, why are we not like having these a congressperson who can sit on a committee who understands science? Like, I mean, that's who should be elected.
Everyone in the ideal world that Andrew Caesardom, like where the Senate is abolished and Andrew is Caesar and the House is decided by me, like. You would have everybody on the education committee would be teachers, former teachers, or former principals.
Sure, yeah.
Like everybody on the climate change and NASA committees would be scientists, like people who could have a basic grasp concept. People on social media would be young. Like I would make sure that everyone on the social media committee was like knew what fucking Facebook and Twitter and what the difference between Google and Android were. Like I have seen congressmen in their 60s go, why does Google do this to the head of Facebook? And they've been like, we don't
Mr.
run
Senator,
Google.
we sell ads.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. Zuckerberg landing a real solid funny without
Senator,
really
we saw
trying
ads.
to.
But I mean, there was another one where he's barbecuing like the head of Google, and he's like, "Why does my iPhone have an anti-me ad for my kid to read it?" And this poor woman, this poor corporate exec, probably not poor at all, but she's this frustrated and understandably empathetically frustrated woman is like, "Well, sir, I work at Google, not Apple. So I can't tell you about the ads you're getting on your Apple phone."
That's a different phone. Yeah.
And it's more just like the incompetence of the people who were asking these questions.
Can you unlock my phone for me? I typed the number in 5 times, and now it says I'm locked out.
I mean, just remember that all the people that when you were kids, audience, the vast majority of you listening, that were like, "I'll chase an ambulance for you." Those are the people who are now in their 60s and are senators and Congress people on average. Like they're people who haven't typed anything in Microsoft Word since 1998. Like Windows 98 was the last time they got a new computer. Those are the people
They're
running
still on
society.
hold to get new ribbon for their typewriter.
Yeah. When does my AOL disc get here? I need internet. When do they mail me the AOL disc?
My Underwood has stopped working, goddammit. That's a typewriter.
How do I unzip the PDF so I can send you an email?
Oh Lord.
I won.
Well,
Look, I'm one of 100,000th visitor to this weird website. I get a free iPad. I'll click it. What do you mean, malware?
My wife at her old job has spent multiple times they were trying to type the web address into Yahoo to get to the site of the company she
instead of the search bar.
So there's like, and there's like it's still on Yahoo, and they're like, you have to click on one of the things. Go down to, you'll see our site. It's this. It's like it just kept going over and over. Like, oh my god, how
there are people.
Are you not doing this?
There are people who used to like stamp credit cards with a credit card like wax paper machine that are in charge of your government. Like it amazes me that we're venturing off into ADHD. This is why this is the same podcast as We Are Horse Girls. It's just you and me talking only about politics. It's the exact same show. It's the same format, and I love it. Alexa's a better host than me, and but.
She's very funny.
She
you
is
guys should listen to that on Patreon.
I hate her for it. Fucking bitch. Funnier than me. Being a good, talented bitch. Fucking hate her. Love you.
That's our show. Thanks, Patreon. Hope you. Thanks for the $3. I'm gonna go spend it.
Listen to We Were Horse Girls. Bye.
Bye. If it's on.
Whatever. We'll figure it out.
America the Conversation is a production of America the Podcast and Shui Media. The show is created, produced, and hosted by Andrew Turner and Tim Phillippe. The show is mixed and edited by Tim Phillippe at Shui Media Studios in Austin, Texas. Music for America the Conversation was created by Timmy Two Step. For more, please visit americatheconversation.com.
This has been a production of Shui Media, all rights reserved. For more information, please visit shuimedia.com.